There is a what's the word, satire Twitter account out there. It's called LOL, as in laughing out loud, GOP, as in the GOP, the Republican Party, LOL GOP. And 17 hours ago, well, maybe it's now 18 or 19 since I printed this out and marked it up. But last night they posted something. The first one was Trump to appoint dingo to watch baby. The second one was Trump appoints flesh-eating bacteria to lead Department of Flesh. Well, you know, it's funny, but it's really deadly serious. I mean, it's really serious what is going on. And the way, the authoritarian way that Donald Trump is doing this is, in my opinion, tremendously concerning. Aaron Rupar over at thinkprogress.org writes, tells the story of Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones was the leader of the Steelworkers Union 1999, the local that represents the people who work for Carrier in Indiana. And he notes that when they were negotiating with Carrier, before Carrier decided, okay, screw this, we're going to move these jobs to Mexico, that when he was negotiating with Carrier, the last deal that Carrier offered, which he turned down, and then they said, okay, that's it, we're leaving town. I'll just read you the phrase. This is from Aaron Rupar over at Think Progress. Jones pointed out that when his union was negotiating with Carrier ahead of the company announcing its initial decision to move the Indiana jobs to Mexico last February, he ultimately rejected an offer that would have resulted in union members, union workers, making less than the minimum wage and receiving no benefits. So it's not likely that there's much more Jones could have done to get Carrier to keep jobs in Indiana, right? I mean, you know, they went all the way down to minimum wage and no benefits. That's what Carrier was offering. And the union said, you know, we're not willing to work for that, but we will, you know, we'll work something out in between. Donald Trump this morning tweets, Chuck Jones, who is the president of the United Steelworkers since 1999, has done a terrible job representing workers. No wonder companies flee the country. If United Steelworkers 1999 was any good, they would have kept those jobs in Indiana, spend more time working, less talking, reduce dues. Really? This is Donald Trump tweeting within the last 24 hours, basically a giant middle finger to the union workers all across the United States. And then, so what has happened since Chuck Jones got named in a Donald Trump tweet? Remember my story a couple of, last week where I was, reading from, they thought they were free, Milton Mayer's account of the rise of Nazism in Germany and parallel things with Mussolini and Italy, et cetera. And there's dozens of countries where this has happened. I mean, just Egypt, just a couple of years ago. Here's what he told the Washington Post. This is the head of the union. After Donald Trump tweeted his name out, basically blaming him because Trump lied about how many workers he was going to save at Carrier by having Mike Pence divert $7 million from Indiana's taxpayers' money as a gift to Carrier Corporation to keep roughly 700 jobs. And if I'm doing my math right, that's $70,000 per job. And these are jobs that pay $55,000 a year. Pretty strange. But in any case, this is from the Washington Post. Half an hour after Trump tweeted about Jones on Wednesday, it was yesterday afternoon, on Wednesday, the union leader's phone began to ring and kept ringing, he said. One voice asked, what kind of car do you drive? Another said, we're coming for you. He wasn't sure how these people found his number. Jones later said on MSNBC, nothing that says they're going to kill me, but you better keep your eye on your kids. We know what car you drive, things along those lines. And then, Think Progress or Aaron Rupar, the writer here, notes that this is a very different Donald Trump than the one we saw on the campaign trail. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump was, I'm all about the workers. I'm here for the working man. I'm going to save these union jobs. And now he's trashing the unions. And in fact, the head of the House Labor Committee, this is the person who's going to be, have oversight over unions and labor and working, all that kind of thing. Representative Virginia Fox, Republican from North Carolina, she said there earlier this week the labor movement has, quote, sort of lost its reason for being. She doesn't even think unions should exist. It's amazing. And let's not forget, Trump has shut unions out of negotiations himself and refused to negotiate, the Trump hotel in Las Vegas. It was a story that I thought never got anything close to the kind of coverage it should. And his pick for the cabinet, now this is not official yet, but the New York Times, Noam Scheiber and Maggie Haberman writing in today's New York Times, Trump's expected labor pick, Andrew Puzder, is a critic of not just unions, the minimum wage. This guy, he's a fast food executive, and he's the chief executive of the company that owns Hardee's and Carl's Jr., the fast food restaurants. And Trump wants to make this guy Secretary of Labor. As they write in the New York Times today, he has opposed efforts to expand eligibility for overtime pay, arguing that the minimum wage hurts small business. And, this is what Reagan did when he put Ray Donovan, who, was similar inclination and not a altogether dissimilar background, as head of the Labor Department. Ray Donovan, a guy who basically hated labor. And this was the beginning of the union busting. When Reagan became president, between a quarter and a third, depending on how you measure it, of the nation's workers were unionized. And, look at now, 6% of the private workforce. Thanks to the changes that Ray Donovan made at the Labor Department during the 80s when he was Reagan's Secretary of Labor, and now this guy. And then it gets even worse. Trump's crony cabinet, as the Progressive Change Campaign Committee calls it. Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt has been tapped to run the Environmental Protection Agency. This is, writes Samantha Page over at Center for American Progress's blog, thinkprogress.blog, is a win for polluters and a loss for the American public. Pruitt does not accept the scientific consensus on climate change. He's putting a climate denier in charge of the EPA. That's like putting somebody in charge of the Food and Drug Administration who doesn't believe that drugs work and that who's a Christian Scientist who believes that we should pray away all illness. That's like putting somebody who thinks that the world is 6,000 years old in charge of the Department of. Oh, he's probably doing that. No. I don't know what Betsy DeVos's positions are on that. But as Attorney General of Oklahoma, Scott Pruitt, our new head of the EPA, has routinely backed fossil fuel interests over those of environmental regulators, has rejected the EPA's authority to regulate carbon dioxide, which, of course, causes climate change. He has received some $300,000 in fossil fuel money, Scott Pruitt, to support his campaign for AG. In other words, his political career is dependent upon the fossil fuel industry, and he's now going to run the EPA. He even wrote a letter to the president and the EPA that was written, according to the New York Times, in 2011, that was written by Devon Energy, by a fossil fuel company. And he submitted this on state letterhead. That's how corrupt this guy is. Or if corrupt is the wrong word, how bizarre. I mean, maybe the Supreme Court has legalized this sort of thing. In fact, I'm quite sure that they have. So maybe you could call it morally corrupt. In fact, I've got a whole thing about this that FDR went off on back in 32. I want to share with you in the second hour of our program. We're going to start with FDR. But Oklahoma has sued to block the Clean Power Plan. Pruitt attended private high-dollar meetings with coal companies prior to joining the lawsuit. The FCC transition team, Trump has appointed net neutrality critics, Jeff Eisenbach and Mark Jameson. Eisenbach is a visiting scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, people that I've been debating for, 14 years on this program, You know, it's a relatively small right-wing think tank funded by petrobillionaires and whatnot. And he says net neutrality is not about protecting consumers from ISPs, rapacious ISPs, and would not promote rural broadband and lower prices, and has nothing to do with promoting free speech. Net neutrality in the U.S. is hurting some of the very same people it is supposed to help, he wrote in a June 2016 article to AEI. So he's putting in charge of the transition team over at the FCC two guys who want to blow up net neutrality. And by the way, net neutrality was kept into place on a 3-2 vote. So pretty soon, however you're getting your internet, expect to see your ISP, your internet service provider, come to you and say, oh, you want to watch streaming video? That's an extra $20 a month. We'll add it to your subscription. Oh, you want to watch the news sites? That's an extra $5 a month. We'll add it to your subscription. Here's the menu of things that you can get. You can get the gold plan, the silver plan, the bronze plan. Oh, you want to watch online? You know, it's beginning, folks. It's beginning. It's the shutting down of America. It's the shutting down of dialogue. Oh, you want to go to progressive sites, liberal sites? Well, that's an extra $20 a month. Just like MSNBC right now, and pretty much anywhere in the country is an extra $5 a month on your cable bill. Get ready. It's coming. They're coming for us. We'll be right back.